Dr. Anderson on page 91 in the book, The Black History Reader, which is at powernomics.com. He says, question 28 is, was Washington, D.C. ever both the slave capital and the nation's capital? He says the District of Columbia, this is the history they're not going to give you. The District of Columbia, situated between Maryland and Virginia, has been a showplace of federal government institutions, businesses, enterprises, and tourism throughout its history. But most notably, before the Civil War, Washington, D.C. was the mistress of the enslavement industry. Let's keep reading. With its main streets studded with slave showrooms, slave depots, and approximately 200 slave auction marts, it earned the title of being the nation's slave capital. How many of y'all knew that? How many of y'all knew that DC was the slave? Did y'all know? What did y'all? I didn't know. Did y'all know this? Anybody else know? I didn't know this. Some of y'all might already know. See. Okay, Ryan's a smart one. Ryan knows this stuff. He's probably reads books and stuff. I didn't learn all this. They didn't teach me this in my school. Okay, so let's keep going. Okay. It was the home of the most notorious and lucrative slave auction houses in the country. How about that? On a typical day, there were continuous parades. So imagine every day, just parades and parades and parades of chained men, women, and children being moved in the streets in a funeral-like procession from one auction house to another. The slaves were held in pens and dungeons until they could be safely sold down the river into the deep south. So they would, I guess, parade the slaves all day long, little boys, little girls, men and women in chains. How many of y'all are shocked by that? How many of y'all kind of just irritated by this? But I know I am. Um, and then they would be sold and sent down south. Okay. Washington, D.C., as the nation's capital, was distinctive because it was the destination of both enslaved and free blacks. However, free black persons living near or in the city were at risk of being kidnapped and sold back into slavery. Damn. So even if you were free, you were at risk of being kidnapped and sold back into slavery. Many reminders of the city's role in slavery still exist. One of the biggest and most infamous auction houses in the city was Roby's Pen Auction House, located near the U.S. Capitol. Its location was convenient for the slaveholders who also worked as government officials and wanted to move back and forth easily between the Capitol debates and slave auctions held on the Capitol steps. With the auction houses close to the seat of national government, the slaveholders could run the country and their slave plantations simultaneously. So if you were a slaveholder, you could run the government and run your plantation and go to DC to vote in Congress and pick up your Negroes and take them back to the plantation. 13 of the nation's first 18 presidents were slave owners. Did y'all know that? 13 of the nation's first 18 presidents. Following the Revolutionary War, so were all of the members of the U.S. Supreme Court. So every member of the Supreme Court had slaves, and most of the members of the U.S. Congress. When he was a member of Congress, Abraham Lincoln commented on how close Roby's Pen Auction House was to the Capitol and congressional offices. American slavery and government were the lifeblood of the District of Columbia and the nation. The race that held the slaves and whips 360 years ago holds the reins of government power today.